It was the night of our high school graduation party, and fueled by a few too many beers, I confessed my feelings to Jake Miller, the school's golden boy. I even stole a kiss. I figured he was so wasted he wouldn't remember a thing. Fast forward a year, and we're playing a game of truth or dare at a college party. Someone asks him when he lost his first kiss. He gives me this wounded look and says, "The night of my high school graduation." My jaw dropped. He remembered everything. I was running late to the graduation bash. When I finally got there, I walked straight into a scene. Sarah, the homecoming queen, was confessing her love to Jake. Holding a bouquet of roses, she was all poised and a little shy. "Jake," she said, "I'm not usually one to make the first move, but I can't let this chance pass. I like you, like a lot. Will you go out with me?" The crowd erupted in cheers. "Say yes, say yes. You two are perfect together." My heart sank. I even found myself joining in the chant, "Say yes, say yes," against my better judgment. Then Jake suddenly looked over in my direction, a flicker of sadness in his eyes. And he turned Sarah down. The crowd let out a collective groan of disappointment. Sarah just shrugged, smiled, and acted like it was no big deal. "No sweat," she said. "We're all friends here, right? Let's just party." She was cool as a cucumber. I couldn't help but admire her. I found a corner and plopped down. I don't get it, why does he turn down the Sarah Anderson? Who could possibly be good enough for him? I heard someone murmur nearby. Yeah, Sarah was gorgeous. This revelation did nothing for my self-esteem. The party vibe bounced back quickly. Lots of people started offering Jake drinks. Jake was basically a demigod, not just a brainiac, but also the most popular guy in school. Especially now that he'd gotten into Stanford, everyone was all over him. And he was also my huge crush. I just watched him, all bright and shiny, and gripped my cup a little tighter. I was too chicken to even get close. My admiration was a secret, a little sad, and I drowned my sorrows in my drink. Then, out of nowhere, Jake came and sat down right next to me. My heart leapt into my throat. He leaned back on the couch, eyes closed, looking exhausted. I couldn't help but stare, but I didn't want to disturb him. He had his own gravitational pull. A bunch of people soon flocked over, and our little corner got crowded again. Then someone noticed me. "Hey, Amy, you're going to UCLA, right?" Jake turned to look at me, too, like he wanted to hear the answer. My pulse went wild. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "Come on, don't be modest. If you don't get into Stanford, UCLA is a lock for you, for sure," he said, so confident. "Thanks, man, I'll know for sure once the scores come out." I laughed politely. Then I turned and caught Jake looking at me again. My heart skipped. I looked away, hoping he didn't notice my blush. A few minutes passed. He chuckled and asked, "Did you bomb the Sats?" I wasn't sure if he was talking to me, so I looked back at him. He was staring at me. I was stunned. I pointed at myself. "Are you, talking to me?" He smiled. "Is there anyone else here?" I glanced around. Everyone else had moved to the main room to play games. It was just him and me in the corner. I was embarrassed. "Not great, I guess." He frowned. "Was it the math section that got you?" I was surprised. How did he know I wasn't good at math? I nodded. "Yeah." He looked like he was processing this, then asked, "What's your total score, roughly?" I gave a hesitant answer. "I think I can get into UCLA." He seemed relieved. His face relaxed. "Okay, good." Then he asked, "Any plans for the summer?" I was totally confused. Why was he being so chatty? We'd never really talked before. I thought he barely knew I existed. "Not really." I gave a nervous smile. "Yeah, I heard you had something going on earlier. I thought you wouldn't make it." He looked at me, the soft lighting catching his face, a small smile playing on his lips. I think my heart actually skipped a beat. Oh, no, I was just a little late, that's all, I stammered. We locked eyes for a second, then both looked away. A moment of silence. He started to say my name. Amy, but before he could finish, Brad, the class president, stormed over. Jake, you gotta come over here. This guy is being stubborn and won't believe me, you gotta tell him, was my answer correct or not? Brad dragged Jake away. Jake looked back at me, then went with Brad to the front of the room. I sat there, trying to make sense of what just happened. This was probably the most we'd ever talked in 3 years of high school. He started those conversations. Did he maybe like me a little? I shook my head, instantly brought back down to earth. He was just being friendly. Then Maya, who'd clearly had a few too many drinks, came swaying over and dragged me over to where her and Kyle were doing shots. Pretty soon I was in on it. The 3 of us were drinking and messing around, until things started to get hazy. My mom called. It was too loud where we were, so I stumbled into an empty room next door to take the call. She just wanted me to go easy on the booze and to get home soon. I hung up and stretched, accidentally bumping into a face with my hand. I jumped. It was Jake's face, lit up by the faint light of my phone. He was asleep, his eyelashes casting long shadows across his face. He had pale skin, a finely chiseled jaw, and those soft pink lips. My heart started hammering again. I stared at him. And then, I just started blurting out whatever came to mind. Jake, I like you so much. Like, for a really, really long time. Jake, will you be my boyfriend? If you're not gonna say no, I'm gonna take that as a yes. Since you're my boyfriend, it's okay to give you a little kiss, right? And that's when I leaned in and gave him a quick peck on the lips. Jake moved a little. I think he woke up. I panicked and bounced back. He was saying something, but then the fire alarm started blaring, and I couldn't hear him. I rushed out of the room and told Maya to get Kyle to help Jake out of the other room. Everyone was in chaos. The staff explained someone had accidentally triggered the alarm. After some apologies and calming down, everyone just decided to call it a night. Maya and Kyle helped Jake to his car, and Maya and I went home. The next morning, with a pounding headache, I cringed at my drunken behavior. I stared at Jake's name in my contacts, trying to decide if I should apologize. I decided to wait. If he remembered, then I'd beg for forgiveness. If not, I'd pretend it never happened. I knew that was wrong, but sober me was too scared to take action. I spent the entire morning in a state of anxiety. But Jake never texted. He must have blacked out. I breathed a sigh of relief and tried to move on. Then my cousin called. Hey, I need a fake girlfriend for a party. I'll give you $500 if you can help me. I didn't even hesitate. Deal. You'll need to put on some makeup. That'll cost extra. He grumbled. Fine, 300 more. Okay, boss. So I put on some makeup, threw on a cute dress, and hightailed it to where my cousin needed me. I put on a show of public affection, scaring off the girl who was crushing on my cousin. I went home with $800, feeling pleased with myself. The next few weeks I lived in fear that Jake would call me out on the kiss. But 2 weeks passed and he never did. He really didn't remember anything. So I didn't bother contacting him either. The whole thing just faded away. The rest of my summer was spent hanging out at my aunt's, acting as the fake girlfriend for my cousin, and then for my other cousin. I was kept busy and made a pretty penny, too. The day the acceptance letters arrived, Maya and I found out we were both going to UCLA. We were ecstatic, planning to celebrate our friendship over a bottle of wine. We ended up running into Kyle at the mall and went for some pizza together instead. Kyle was even more excited than we were. I'm going to see you guys all the time. I'm so glad I ran into you. Kyle and Jake were best buds, also super smart guys. He'd gotten into Stanford, which was just across town from UCLA. No wonder he was excited. Sorry, dude, I almost forgot about you, I said, teasing him. He rolled his eyes. Amy, come on, I'm totally straight. Yeah, got it, I said, throwing my hands up. Maya glanced at him. Hey, how come you're shopping alone? Where's Jake? Kyle sighed. He's in SF. Why so early? I thought school was starting next month. Kyle got all mysterious. I'm only telling you guys this, you have to keep it to yourselves. We nodded eagerly, ears perked, ready for some gossip. Jake got dumped, and he went early to lick his wounds. Dumped? He had a girlfriend? We both exclaimed at the same time. Yeah, she cheated on him. Kyle shook his head sadly. I was shocked and kind of sad. The guy I couldn't get over had been heartbroken. Well, life's not fair, Maya sighed. He said he had a thing for her for ages. It really messed him up, Kyle said. Is she someone we know? Maya asked. I was so curious, too. I don't think so, Kyle said. No wonder he'd turned Sarah down. He was hung up on some other girl. I remembered his sudden kindness the night of the party. I had almost thought he might have been into me. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me. We had a few drinks with our food and left. A few days later, Maya went to visit family in the mountains. Kyle went traveling. I was bored. I drove back and forth between my parents, my aunt, and my grandmother's house, going crazy. Finally, the day came to move into college. Maya, Kyle, and I decided against our families dropping us off. We headed over to California together. After we got settled into our dorms, we met up for dinner. To my surprise, Jake showed up, too. He'd lost a lot of weight. He looked like he was having a rough time. I gave him a polite smile, and he gave a barely there nod. I guess heartbreak really was messing with him. I decided to give him a wide berth. He seemed to have lost his appetite. He wasn't eating, and he didn't talk much. It made the dinner feel pretty awkward. We were all trying not to make him feel bad. But somehow, Maya and Kyle were doing shots again. And Maya got drunk again. Jake, that girl didn't know how good you were. There's plenty more fish in the sea. I know this hot girl in my major. I could set you up. Yeah, there are a lot of beautiful girls at Stanford. You can come and check them out tomorrow. Kyle added, betraying his earlier promise to keep things quiet. They were trying to cheer Jake up, but it felt awkward, and I wanted to chime in, too. Yeah, if you want, I can maybe introduce someone. To me. He turned to me, sarcasm dripping in his voice. You're gonna set me up with someone? That's gonna work out well. Huh? I didn't understand what he meant. Kyle and Maya were just as confused as I was. He just smirked. Then he advised Kyle and Maya to be careful and not cause any trouble, and got up to pay the bill. I felt like he was targeting me somehow. Did he remember the kiss? I felt panicked. I heard his ex-girlfriend's cheating story was about someone getting drunk, so don't worry about it, guys, Kyle said, not quite sober. Oh, so, that's what that was about. I felt a little relieved. After dinner, they dropped Maya and me off first and left. Before he drove away, I thanked Jake for the dinner. He looked cold and just replied with sure. He hated me. That was obvious. I couldn't believe I almost thought he liked me. A few days later, we started training for the semester. I hated it. Maya, who couldn't stand the sun, was getting even more tanned. Kyle was texting about how terrible it was. We met up for dinner one more time. Since Jake had paid last time, I offered to pick up the bill, but he refused. I felt a little hurt. His dislike for me was obvious. He wouldn't even let me pay for him. I wondered what the girl he liked was like. She must have been unbelievably gorgeous. How else could he have let her treat him so badly? I told myself it was time to get over it. I was wasting my time pining for Jake Miller. I started avoiding him. If I knew he was going to be somewhere, I'd try to be somewhere else. I was scared that my feelings for him were just going to get stronger if I kept seeing him. Later, I found out from Kyle that Jake was over his breakup. He was busy with competitions and didn't have any time for feelings. I never saw him for the rest of the semester. When the break came, Maya, Kyle, and I traveled together. Jake wasn't with us. He was going to stay for 2 more days, according to Kyle. I was bored and restless. I saw an ad for a half-price date night at a local pizza place. I snapped a picture and put it on my Instagram, saying, "Someone take this poor single gal out on a half-price date." My comments blew up instantly. Maya, always looking for a deal. Can't you just go out with me? Kyle, you wanna go with me? Friend 1, is a girl okay? Friend 2, stop. There's no single man left. It's exhausting. I was rolling my eyes at my friends. Then, out of the blue, Jake texted me. Jake, when? Amy, what? Jake, the pizza. My heart went wild. I couldn't believe he wanted to hang out with me, but now I couldn't just say no. Amy, when are you free? Jake, anytime. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 8:30 p.m. Amy, how about tomorrow afternoon? Jake, fine by me. I just stared at my screen and smiled like an idiot. Maybe he wasn't such a jerk. Maybe his coldness was just because of that whole breakup thing. I was getting carried away, feeling really good. I put on a face mask and sang to myself. Then my cousin called, begging me for help. I almost turned him down. I'll give you $1,000, he pleaded. That was too much money to pass up. So I dolled myself up again and went to be his fake girlfriend for the night. It was an easy $1,000. I couldn't wait to go out with the guy of my dreams. It felt like after being in the doldrums for years, the universe was finally on my side. I fell asleep hugging my phone. I woke up early and tried on a bunch of different outfits. Finally, after a lot of fretting, I texted Jake, "You up?" I checked my phone again. And then, nothing. He'd unfriended me. I had no idea what was going on. I was confused and angry. I couldn't make heads or tails of this behavior. It was like he was toying with me. I felt like maybe it was my fault. Maybe he had finally remembered our stolen kiss and was getting revenge. I tried to forget about it, but I couldn't. I decided I was going to go to Stanford. I was going to find him and demand an explanation. Even if he was my dream guy, I couldn't let him treat me like that. Kyle came to meet me at the Stanford gate. What's so urgent? Why do you need to see Jake? If I can help, I will. This is something I have to talk to Jake about in person. My anger was starting to boil over. Too bad, you missed him. He left for some study abroad program yesterday, at a fancy school on the East Coast. He'll be gone for a year. I was stunned. It took me a while to process that news. My anger quickly faded. I started to walk back to my dorms, feeling lost. Kyle followed me, talking non-stop. You look just like Jake looked a few days ago. What's the deal? You guys been eating bad mushrooms or something? I ignored him, my mind spinning. What was it? Why do you have to see him? Was it something I can help you with? It was nothing. You said he looked lost? I was curious now. Yeah, apparently he was gonna ask his ex out, but then she got back with her old boyfriend. I was even more angry now. I was just a rebound. He was using me as his emotional punching bag. I kicked a curb in frustration. Kyle chuckled, talking on his phone. Wow, anyone seeing this would think you guys just had a lover's spat. I snapped. I wouldn't date that jerk even if my life depended on it. The best guy I knew was actually a big jerk. I didn't want him anymore. Hey, don't hang up on me, Jake, Kyle said, looking at his phone. So he was calling Jake just then? I was speechless. He patted my head. You wanna see him, right? I thought it was something urgent, so I called him, and you yelled at him. Great. I sighed. Whatever. I was not going to chase after a guy all the way to the East Coast. He and I just let things go. I waved goodbye at the gate. Go home, dude. You sure you're okay? He seemed worried. Yeah, I'm good. I tried to get over things, throwing myself into studying for the school's English competition. Then, one day, Maya put on a dress and came to me all giggly. Amy, do I look like a tomboy anymore? I put down my book, shocked. She used to only wear sweats and t-shirts. And she'd actually straightened her hair, and she was wearing lipstick? I'd been so busy, I hadn't noticed that she was transforming. This was something new. You look great, really. But why the makeover? Who is the lucky guy? I crossed my arms, looking mischievous. She stammered. It's just, Kyle always calls me bro, it's annoying. I instantly knew what was going on. You're crushing on Kyle, right? She looked away. Don't tell him anything. Oh, you're all shy now, huh? Stop making fun of me. Hey, let's be real for a second. Have you ever had a big crush? What's it like? I choked on my water. I would never tell her about Jake. I was scared she would laugh at me. So you have, huh? She asked. I nodded. Did you ever confess? I shook my head. I'm not good enough, so I never did. Where is all this negativity coming from? You're gorgeous, smart, funny. Why do you sell yourself short all the time? She looked puzzled. It probably had to do with my childhood. When I was 6 or 7, my parents got jobs far away from where we lived. My grandma and aunts weren't in the country, and my aunt was too busy with work. My parents had no choice but to send me to my grandfather's and his new wife. My grandmother was cruel and my grandfather was a sexist. They were not happy to have me. They only agreed because my parents were paying a lot of money for my upkeep. They made fun of me, insulted me, and basically just made me feel like I was worthless. My cousin would get all the other kids in the neighborhood to follow me and call me names. The adults didn't stop them. My grandfather even said I deserved it. I never spoke. I kept quiet and tried to disappear. Why didn't I tell my parents? Because my step-grandmother threatened me. She said that if my mom didn't trust her enough to stay there, she would quit her job and take care of me herself. But then my father would never be able to make enough money to keep us afloat, and I would be homeless, hungry, and I wouldn't have the chance to go to school. I was a kid, I believed her, and I was too scared to tell my parents what was happening. Finally, my mother found out. She got me to tell her everything. My father was furious. He never spoke to my grandfather again. My aunt came over and broke all the furniture at their house. My mother left her job and started taking care of me herself. It took a long time, but her love helped me heal from the damage that those people did to me. But I still lacked confidence. Maya hugged me tight. Then she asked, so, who was the crush? I looked away. I'll tell you later. She nodded slowly and changed the subject. One weekend, I got an anonymous package. It had a lot of different English books, previous competition tests, and practice materials. There was a note on top. The person said to add them on WeChat. He or she had a master's in English and would give me free English tutoring. I didn't hesitate to add him. I wanted to know who the person was. And I needed a tutor. I could get free help? Sign me up. But whoever was on the other end wouldn't say who he or she was. I got used to it, and I eventually stopped caring. Every night at 8 p.m., we would start. He or she never used their microphone. First I would practice my speech, then I would work on my writing, and they would give me feedback. They would give me detailed instructions on my pronunciation and send short videos that I would repeat. and they would also suggest easier ways to learn. Thanks to their help, I won the competition. I wanted to meet them in person, but he or she said they were too busy. They said they didn't use that WeChat account often, but I could always leave them a message if I needed anything. I couldn't meet my secret angel, but they didn't want to meet me, and I couldn't force them. Maya and Kyle wanted to celebrate, so I took them out for some pizza. When they found out I had this secret angel, they were jealous and confused. Maya thought for a second. Maybe it's Jake? His mom studied in the UK, he learned from her. His accent was really perfect. I laughed. No way, they act like they hate each other. That's right. And he was abroad now. It was a mystery. They didn't want to say, so I let it go. Maya and Kyle were still just friends. I went on a few dates, but they weren't for me. Another winter break came along, and the class president had organized a reunion. Maya and I went because we had nothing better to do. Everyone had changed. People seemed more mature. And people could hold their liquor. Kyle was the only one who didn't come. Wasn't Kyle coming? I asked Maya. He's waiting for Jake. My heart skipped a beat. I was excited. Well, here they are, Maya said, pointing to the entrance. The crowd went crazy when they came. I looked over and made eye contact with Jake. He looked even better. He seemed calm. My heart skipped a beat and started pounding. I still liked him. They said hello to everyone and joined us at our table. Everyone was doing shots, and eventually we ended up playing Truth or Dare. I had the worst luck and was first up. How many boyfriends have you had? The guy who was spinning the bottle smirked. I've never had a boyfriend, I told him. Before anyone could say anything, Jake chuckled. Everyone looked over at him, I did too. Oh, sorry, I just remembered a funny joke. Continue, he said. But then he gave me a look that wasn't funny. I had no idea what that was about. Then a girl spun the bottle and it landed on Jake. She smiled. Jake, can I ask you 3 questions? Everyone was like yes. He smiled. Sure. The girl rubbed her hands together. Okay. First question, when was your first love? My head snapped to him. He looked back. He looked at me for a long time, then said, high school. Everyone was shocked. Who was it? We all knew so many girls liked you, we didn't know you actually had a girlfriend. It was this crazy girl, she dumped me less than 24 hours after we got together. He looked at me. I was confused. I knew he was targeting me, but there was no way. I have never had a boyfriend, let alone one I cheated on. Wow, that girl he had a thing for had no problem dumping him. That's her loss, you deserve better, someone said. He smiled, but didn't say anything. Second question, are you single? Yeah. All the girls looked excited now. Last question, when was your first kiss? High school. I sighed in relief. The night of our graduation party, he added, slow and with a little emphasis. My hand shook, spilling my drink. I stared at him. He smiled and looked right into my eyes. He remembered it all. I felt embarrassed, remembering all the stuff I said that night. That explained why he was so cold towards me before. I felt bad for him. I really messed him up. Everyone started trying to remember the party, but no one could. Then Jake spun the bottle. He did it on purpose, too. The bottle landed on me. I was still reeling. He started to ask. Same questions. When was your first kiss? I almost choked. He was so mean. He knew I'd never had a boyfriend before. I ended up drinking instead. Jake's face turned dark. After the 3rd shot, I went to the bathroom. I washed my face and came out to see Jake leaning against the wall. He took a deep drag on his cigarette and let out the smoke. I tried to calm myself. His eyes, framed by the smoke, were breathtaking. Even though I was freaking out, I still thought he was so good looking. I needed to apologize. I gathered my courage. But then, I tripped on the step and reached out and grabbed his hand to stop myself from falling. He laughed and put out his cigarette. Then he held me up. What now? He was laughing, still. I tripped, I stammered. So you're not drunk now? My heart was thumping. Jake, what I did, I'm sorry, please forgive me. He stared at me. For what? The kiss, I shouldn't have done it, I'm sorry, I said. He stared for another minute, then said it's all in the past. He looked sad, and he just walked away. I was confused. He forgave me, but I felt bad anyway. A few days before Christmas, Maya decided to confess her feelings to Kyle. She wanted me to get Kyle to come over. I asked Kyle to dress up nice for the occasion. Maya and I were waiting for him in the bar. Then he walked over holding flowers. He was red and shy. Maya and I looked at each other and smiled. But then, Kyle got down on one knee in front of me. Amy, I like you. I know I should have done this, but I've been waiting for a sign. Will you be my girlfriend? Maya and I both just stood there with our mouths open. Maya got upset, tears in her eyes. She tore everything down and ran away. Kyle was confused now, looking back and forth between us. I had to reject him and explain about Maya's feelings. I had no time to wait for his reaction and ran after her. I found her, and she laughed. It's okay, I'm not as pathetic as I used to be. I didn't know he liked you, I would've. She stopped. I should've just stayed home. I felt guilty, too. You shouldn't apologize, I don't like him, and I'm sorry, I didn't know he would do that. If you really liked him, that would be okay. I wouldn't be mad. I know you better than that, so what's the deal? Did I misread something? And before you ask, yes, I'm okay. She rolled her eyes. I was speechless. I do not like him, I've told you that before. She raised an eyebrow, not buying it for 1 second. Hey, before, you said you had a crush on someone. Was it Kyle? I was mad, and I started yelling. I don't like Kyle, I like Jake. She just smiled. I turned around to see Jake, standing a few yards away. My heart jumped. He stared at me. I looked at Maya for help. She shook her head and ran away. Jake looked at me. Then, he sighed. Okay, Amy? Whatever you're trying to do to me, I'm letting you win. You were just using me, or making a joke, or whatever. You can stop now. I ran away from you for so long, but the minute I see you I lose it, I can't help it, he said. He was so sad. I was surprised. What do you mean? I asked. He looked up at me. I like you, Amy. I had dreamed of this happening 1,000 times, every time I would wake up laughing. I always thought that he would never feel the same about me. But he did. I was too shocked to move. You've broken up with your ex, and got back together, and broken up with them a bunch of times, and you've played me a lot. Now, it's my turn, Jake said. What? He rolled his eyes and sighed again, looking sad. 2 years ago, you asked me to be your boyfriend, and I said yes. But the next day you cheated on me. And then the same thing happened last year when you were all alone, and I asked you out, and you left me for that other guy. You've had so many chances, I'm the one who should get a chance, Jake said. Amy, look at me, will you please be my girlfriend? I was stunned. So that's it, that girl who broke his heart, the one who he had had a thing for, was me? I was his first love? He actually liked my confession? I just stared at him, not knowing what to say. He turned dark. You don't like me? I still had no idea what to say. Then he looked like he had an idea and grimaced like he had to do something awful. He cleared his throat, and then he barked. I couldn't believe what was happening. He looked away, a little shy. You said you wouldn't date me even if your life depended on it. I remembered Kyle's phone call. He had actually remembered. I couldn't help but laugh. Are you still not going to be my girlfriend? He yelled. I put my arms around his neck and kissed him. He froze for a second, then kissed me back. After a while I pulled away. I was smiling. He held me and looked at me, then kissed me again. It was gentle and possessive. It felt like a dream. We walked around talking about all the stuff that had happened. Then we started talking about my English tutor. He didn't seem to care about who it was. Was it you? I asked. He smiled and touched my hair. Yeah. I was shocked. I was starting to cry. I remember, lots of times I didn't text him at the time we were supposed to be studying. He would always reply right away. He must have stayed up late for me. You must have been so tired, right? I said. It was better than thinking about you, he said, holding me. I got home and my cousin was standing in front of my house, waiting for me. When Jake saw him, his face went dark. Amy, if you break up with me in 2 hours, I'm gonna be so mad. He was being serious. I laughed. What's up? I said to my cousin. He came over. My mom needs a ride. He looked at Jake with a surprised look on his face. Mom is at your house? I asked. Yeah, he said. Jake's face turned dark. I cleared my throat. Don't ask me to pretend anymore. It's over. My cousin looked confused. I used to never pass up a good-paying job. Why? He asked. I pointed at Jake. My boyfriend doesn't like it. Boyfriend? Boyfriend? My cousin and Jake said at the same time. I smiled and introduced them to each other. My cousin gave me a thumbs up. Jake was blushing. He whispered in my ear, so I've been getting jealous over your little cousin for 2 years? I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, and my other cousin, too. His face turned dark. I'm gonna make you pay for this. I just laughed. That night, Maya called me. Did you kiss him yet? We kissed 2 years ago, I said, laughing. What? So I told her everything. She screamed and cried. It's not fair. Why do you have to get back together the day I get dumped? I'm sorry? She sighed. It was my fault anyway. You guys are gonna buy me a big fancy dinner. You would have just stayed single forever if I hadn't helped you get your acts together. Okay, I'll tell Jake. No, I don't want to go. You guys have fun, she said, and hung up. She was being really tough, but I knew she was hurting. We got back to school and Jake took Maya and Kyle out to dinner. I looked over at Kyle. He rolled his eyes. It's too late now, I don't take the trash out, you hear? He was so funny, I couldn't help but laugh. Jake gave him a glare. Kyle just rolled his eyes again and looked at Maya. She had actually dressed up for dinner and looked beautiful. She had curled her hair and done her makeup. She was wearing a pretty dress. Maya noticed him looking at her. She puffed out her chest. I don't need you anyway, leave me alone. And then we all started laughing. We were all back to the way we had always been. Dating Jake was amazing. He treated me so well. Maya said that I was acting like a baby. He knew exactly what I liked to eat and would organize my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I just had to go to school and meet him. He picked the food and made sure I had all the nutrients I needed. It was a very big difference from the junk food I always ate. Maya watched him picking out the bones in my fish and rolled her eyes. You used to eat instant noodles with cold water, what happened to you? That was because you were never there to take care of her, but I am here now, so that will never happen again, Jake said calmly, picking the corn husks out of my food. Maya looked like she was going to throw up. I just started to laugh. Maya was mad. I swear, if we eat out again tomorrow, I'm gonna act like a dog. Jake had an apartment that he rented off campus. I would go to his place on the weekends. He was an amazing cook. I just had to say what I wanted and he'd make it. His shrimp scampi was better than my mom's. He peeled a plate full of shrimp for me and I ate every single one. Then I was trying to wash the dishes, but he wouldn't let me. It's okay, I'll do it, I need to work off all this food, I said, pushing him away. He just watched me, a little amused. Oh, you wanna work it off? Maybe you should wait a little bit. I was washing the dishes and looked at him. He was laughing. I knew what he was talking about and started to blush. My hands were trembling a little. He chuckled, I'll do it. He put his hands on my waist and pulled me close. His body was hot, and his breath on my neck was. I couldn't wash the dishes. I turned and just kissed him. We kissed our way to the bedroom. And the next thing I knew, I woke up, it was almost midnight, and he was still up doing the dishes. Jake got a scholarship to go to Stanford for graduate school. I also applied, and I got accepted. After we graduated, we both got jobs that we loved. A year later, we got married. The clerk couldn't believe it. Amy Miller and Jake Miller? Amy and Jake, like night and day, you guys were meant for each other. We smiled at each other, so happy. It was because of a misunderstanding that we were apart for 2 years. We found our way to each other again. Remember to talk it out. Jake's epilogue. I knew I liked Amy for a long time. I think I was in love with her back in high school. I just wanted to watch her. I wanted to see if she liked me back. I always got disappointed. She never looked my way, and didn't seem to notice me. At our graduation, I was thinking about telling her, even if she didn't like me back. Then I heard that she wasn't coming, and I felt so down. I drank a lot. When Sarah asked me out, Amy showed up. I felt so upset, because she was with the crowd, asking me to date Sarah. I went to talk to her, because I knew she liked me, and I was going to tell her how I felt. I was all over the place. I was not thinking straight. I was drunk, and my arms were heavy. I went into the other room. Then Amy came in, and told me she liked me, and then she kissed me. I agreed, and was just going to pull her close, but then she ran away. I was too tired to do anything, so I fell asleep. Then my friend called and said I had to meet him at a bar. I went to the bar, and saw Amy making out with a guy. I lost it. And she started dating the next guy 2 weeks later. I was so disappointed, I moved to San Francisco. But then I saw her post. And she said she was single. I was so happy. I asked her to go to the pizza place. I wanted her to know how I felt. But then I saw her with another man. So I got mad, deleted her contact, and agreed to go to the school on the East Coast. While I was away, I heard her say she hated me. I was sad. I wanted her to win that competition, so I helped her out. It was hard, I barely got any sleep. I just wanted to see her name pop up on my phone. I was a simp. I went to see her confess to my best friend, and I knew I wanted her. I just wanted to hold her and kiss her. I heard that she had a thing for me. I wasn't sure if it was true, but I had to try. Then I heard that the guy she had been dating was her cousin. I wanted to kick them in the face. I couldn't believe it. She is my wife now. I'm so glad I got to be her husband. I'm happy I finally have her.